RFK Jr.'s pick for vice president has said a number of things that are not to be said in ways they're not to be said. Nicole Shanahan did not spend good money to be a vice presidential candidate for no good reason. Let's just go through some quick facts about this. A Kennedy ran for president, and the Mockingbird media refused to discuss the fact that a Kennedy was running for president. The DNC refused to entertain any form of endorsement of a Kennedy running for president. Just imagine that. A Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is, to my eyes, a good-looking dude. He's tan, he's fit. He speaks poorly, given his medical condition. By the way, that was mocked. There's a mock, and we'll get to this later this week, that was mocked. So he speaks, well, I guess in a rough way, but he speaks well for someone who has a real bad throat condition. He's intelligent. He's whack on some of the left-leaning positions, like if you're a world leader and you do not believe in the climate crisis, you should probably go to prison. That's pretty whack. He also believes that the NRA is just as responsible for gun deaths as the people who pulled the trigger, which is equally whack. But he's also committed his life to protecting kids. You can disagree with how he protected kids. There are certain platforms on which I can't even discuss how he protected kids. Can't even say it. Get myself in trouble. But you know what that is. His VP candidate coming out and saying what she has said, for instance, this, that the DNC did everything they could to rig the election against them, suing them, lawfare, keeping them off ballots, infiltrating their campaign. But what she said about the DNC being a cover-up, well, that's really, really interesting. And she talked to Dr. Drew about this, a cover-up for what? Well, a lot. You'll hear this in a second in my response to this. You can't hear this device in our studio because, well, it's relatively silent. It's right over there, and it has a job to do. If you're watching this, you see, like, we can't have these windows open. We can't have the doors open. We don't get any sound quality or video quality out of that. So it's an enclosed space. Right now, it's just me and Nayana in here. Oftentimes, we're in here shooting for 6 or 7 hours. That's not great. I mean, we've got ventilation, kind of. But the Oxy Leaf 2 thunderstorm device working in the background is filling the air with O3 molecules. Those are incredible. They bond to molecules that create bad smell, like cat litter, like fish, like cigarette smoke, like sweat, and they just destroy them. It works on vomit. It actually does. Kid vomit, baking in a car overnight, it will negate it. It's gone. And it's not an air filter. Air filters are loud. Plus, you have to replace the filters every year, $200 to $400. Plug this thing in the wall in about 3 minutes. Your home, RV, dorm, what have you, small business, smells like the day after a thunderstorm. That's why it has its name. I'm going to give you these for a $200 savings, 3 devices. Just go to EdenPureDeals.com, enter code TOD3, and you just save $200 on whole home or whole business, certainly whole RV coverage. EdenPureDeals.com, enter code TOD3. Talking with Dr. Drew, this is RFK's pick for VP. Of course, he suspended his campaign and has now endorsed President Trump. And she talks about the Harris-Walz campaign, in other words, the DNC being a cover-up.
Really confusing what is going on over there and where their direction really is, or if it's just a day-by-day cover operation.
For?
Well, let's unpack it. What is it for? I mean, what is this party's cover operation for? I think they're covering, they're covering their tracks from basically gutting democracy over the last 10 years.
Freedom,
free speech, the censorship.
Encroachments on freedom, centralization of authority and things like healthcare.
Yep. Yeah. I think that it probably goes on and on. We don't really know the depths and scopes of it all, but a lot of it is pretty obvious at this point, which is why I really believe that if we gave disillusioned Democrats and liberals and progressives a new home, we would have likely won, or we would likely win this election. And the numbers looked really good. In fact, they still look really good. The problem is now that their new hat trick over at the DNC is to remove third parties from ballots that they rightfully been on. And
they're forcing Bobby to do something. They're forcing him to join other teams.
Well, they did force him to do that, and he chose President Trump's team. If you think about this, and you look at the DNC for what it is. It's a wrapper over something. So many things come back to me as I regard what she said. Number one was a conversation I had with a Texas-based congressman alone in his office. That's a rare thing. Congressmen and principals back there usually don't like to have one-on-one discussions because anyone could leave that discussion and say a promise was made. And this guy actually let me sit in there with him one-on-one. And that was really cool. And what he said to me was this. We were sitting in his office, and I'd helped him with some questions about tech and social media back when I worked in that field and cared about it, and now I don't care. But I sat there, and I looked up at the wall of his office, and I said, Congressman, this bill, is that real? And he said, oh, yeah. Yeah, we narrowly stopped that. This was during the Obama period. Want to know what the bill was? The bill was something I believe called the Fair Housing Occupancy Act. Here's what it did. If a bank owned a foreclosed home and no one was living there, a community organizing group could sue the house. And if they won because the house couldn't hire an attorney, they're not suing the bank, they're suing the house. They could occupy the house. The bank would have to pay for the upkeep of the house and the taxes on the house, but the people would get to live there for free. And I said, there's so many of these houses right now. This is after the housing crash. He goes, oh, I know. He said, Todd, if the American people really understood what was going on in Washington, D.C., they'd be here with pitchforks and torches. It is a raiding of the Treasury. A raiding of the Treasury. Let's just think about something about the Democrat National Committee and the Harris-Walz campaign. 0 votes, and she's the nominee. The Democrat National Committee is the home of the little people, and they're the author of a business model called this. We will force you to purchase or ingest products you don't want from companies you don't like at prices you either cannot afford or are forced to pay on behalf of others. That's their business model. If you're a big, gargantuan business and you have one side of the aisle saying, you know what, we'll clear out those regulations for you and we'll streamline and we'll lower tax rates and you can come back to the country and you can produce goods and services here. And you've got another one saying, look, we'll force people to use your products. Who are you going to choose? So the forced conversions to electricity, electric cars, the actual, in cities like Seattle, the actual banning of natural gas in new homes, they hope to ban it in existing homes. What does that do? It forces you to change. It forces you to purchase another product that you don't want. I don't want an electric stove. I like our gas stove. And they're looking at all sorts of measures like this, including, and this is flat nuts, but again, it goes back to the point. One of the proposals that Kamala Harris's economic team has made on her behalf and that she's spoken through her teleprompter is to tax people on unrealized capital gains. Here's what this means. If your stock portfolio has gone up in value, and they're saying this is going to be corporate right now, so a company's stock value has gone up, well, they need to pay taxes on that. But wait, they haven't sold the stock. Yeah, but the value is super high, so you need to pay taxes. Okay, so the stock's at $300. You're forced to pay taxes on that. The government takes it from you, and then your stock goes down to $100. Does the government send you the money back? Well, no, because it was super high, and we stole it. They have floated doing this to people in their houses. It's the highest and best used argument. You should be using your house differently. You're not using the highest and best use of your house. So they are going to tax you. They floated this on the West Coast. You buy a house for $500,000. It is your nest egg, your investment. You're well aware that it's going to go up in value. We had a home like this in Seattle. As an example, we had a home like this in Seattle. Beautiful view house, had a peak of view of the sound, a beautiful view of downtown in this little town we were above. It was these high ceilings, these Swiss, ceilings, handmade, very beautiful home. We'd paid it off. Praise God Almighty. When we bought it for $315,000. It was worth about $7 when we sold it. The government could have come along. This was the proposal. They could have come along and said, number one, you have an oversized lot. We did. We were blessed with an oversized lot. Number two, you've got a view. That's true. We did have a view. Number three, you're on a cul-de-sac. It's a dead-end street. There's no traffic driving by. That's all true. You're 5 minutes from a world-renowned greenbelt on the Sound. True story. We're going to say that if we put condos here, this plot of land would be worth, let's say, $5 million. Therefore, we place a value of $5 million on your house, Todd. Now your property tax isn't whatever it was, insane level back in Seattle, like $2,500 every 3 months or every 4 months. Now your property tax is $25,000 every 3 months. Pay us. I don't have that money. That sucks. Guess you have to sell. When they're talking about cover story and RFK's VP pick is talking about the DNC being a cover, you could say deep state, you could say anything else. She says it's for gutting so-called democracy. What Nicole Shanahan can say is this. The Democrat National Committee and the joy and that we're doing it for kids and Cammie's laugh. You know what it's a cover for? The mob. You have something we like. We're going to take it. We're going to force you to do things. But man, we're going to do it with joy.